Okay, good evening, and I am Pavlovskaya Anna. Today we'll look at dark web together, and we'll talk about psychological profiles of cybercriminals. A few words about myself. I'm an analyst at Kaspersky Digital Footprint Intelligence. I have been with InfoSec for 8 years, of which 4 years I have been doing OSINT. I have spent countless hours exploring dark web, looking for threats. And because we look at data leaks and exploits, we have some sort of fun of reading dark web, some sort of morning fun. And from this came an idea to understand the psychological portraits of cyber criminals. And a disclaimer from my side, I'm an expert in cybersecurity. I'm not a psychologist by education. And in my presentation, I want to not be judgmental of what's good and what's bad, and I would call on you to practice the same mindset, but to try and understand what's important for cyber criminals. However, despite of their motives, that is no ratification for their criminal activities. Here's what we'll talk about today. First, we'll look at a typical portrait of a cyber criminal. We'll try to bust some myths about cyber criminals and to look at reality. We'll discuss the dark web society. We'll talk about the values and needs of people there. We'll look at what happens to cyber criminals at the end of their career, other than a prison term, of course. And why don't we go into ethical hacking? Talking about cybercrime as a phenomenon, it has been reviewed by many researchers, many psychologists, and everyone pretty much talks about the same thing, that there are 5 main characteristics. They are narcissistic, they want to have financial benefits, they have a lack of empathy and risk tolerance, as well as high level of intellect. Well, the high level of intellect and being narcissistic and egotistic, these are not the main factors, rather supplemental. Yes, it's quite a regular thing that such people have good technical understanding, and yes, they have an ego, but the desire of being appreciated by other people is a natural need of people. So let's not focus on those two. We'll talk about the remaining 3. And let's start with the financial benefits. Financial motivation is not unique. Pretty much everyone wants to have money, but people get on the dark side wanting to earn quick and big money. Median pay in dark web is from $1,300 to $4,000 depending on the profession, which is very comparable, very competitive versus the official markets. You can even make more money working as a non-criminal professional. And we can see quite a broad range. And often dark web would offer some fixed amounts which can be supplemented by bonuses. In dark web there are startups, and sometimes criminals would ask people to work for free just for an idea, and when the service takes off they could get a share of the benefits. And working for free when people agree to work for free, financial motivation sounds quite strange. Well, question is, what about ransom? Where are the millions? Why don't you talk about that? Well, we'll talk about darknet as a market, which has similar features as the financial markets. The same rules of capitalism, the same supply and demand laws apply here. There's competition, reputation is important, and we have some elite at the top, ransomware groups, APT groups, and hacker groups that can make big money. At the bottom of the pyramid, we can see rookie attackers that are at the bottom of the pyramid that agree for a low-paid job, willing to rise in the social ranks. Another interesting feature in dark web is scammers that develop some scams. Now, this looks like a pyramid, and it's interesting to look at the medium level in dark web. Early this year, there was an interesting study, rather an interview, with a malware as a service owner, a famous info stealer. He shared information about how much he makes. According to Sultan, the average revenue in that business is 50,000. Costs are 8,000, which means that the profit margin is 84%. And talking about a SaaS model as a business, the average profit margin is 50 to 80%. Now, this is quite a successful and profit-making business. But what was surprising for me was the pay to the team, although that is in line with our study. He says that they have a C++ programmer, a web programmer, sysadmin, and support. And support is not just tech support, but it's a management role. It's a CEO. This person runs the show, so to say, and everyone, with the exception of support, they get the same pay. That's $2,000 and they get an annual bonus. And the bonus also includes a closely knit team. And there was a question, why so little? That's a criminal activity, purely criminal activity. And Sultan said that the people who work in the team, they have a good workload, they don't have any stressful schedule, and they have an opportunity to even work somewhere else, and they are happy with that level. Another interesting number is the subscription fee per month. That is comparable to other services. Approximately 150 people buy the service of this info stealer. To see whether that's a lot or not, let's look at our statistics. This year we launched a campaign called Stealer Storm, which was used to assess the stealer infections. The most popular stealer was Redline. Vida ranked second. But in 2023, it started losing positions. Sultan says that he doesn't see a problem with that, and he can maintain good relationship with Raccoon and Luma. He doesn't need money, he says, that he's got enough money, and that is a business that he does for fun. So yes, money can be motivation for some cyber criminals. There are some areas where the money is huge, but for most, money matters, but that's not key. For Sultan, for example, the motivation is certainly not money. For one, you can make the same money in a perfectly legitimate business. And also, what happens in cyber crime when a business starts making money? Surprise, they start developing a legitimate business to launder their money. Thus, the criminals would have an illegal and legitimate business. If you looked into the OSINT study of a leader of another malware, the study identified a number of legitimate business that Dmitry has, which also points to the fact that many cyber criminals also have a white business, a legitimate business. It's some sort of fun for a cyber criminal. You made black money, you want to launder it for legitimate business. Let's now talk about risk tolerance. If you've got your legitimate business, why do you want to go and risk in the dark web? It is believed that cyber criminals have high risk tolerance, that they feel at distance from their victims, and that explains the level of risk that they are willing to take. Again, I turned to Sultan's interview, and he says that he is not afraid with the potential risk of having to go to prison. The only motivation for him to make sure that he observes all the necessary security measures. And also, let's take the Logbit case. Logbit didn't pay the money that it was supposed to pay, and they deceived users. Well, deception is not an unusual thing here, but here there are two approaches. First is that they charge too much, and the money they charge is commensurate with the risk. And the second stance is that this money is not enough. And the risk is not just the obvious risk of having trouble with the law. Cybersecurity individuals have other fears. For example, Logbit threatened to de-anonymize the owner of the forum, and they have enough funds to do de-anonymization or DDoS attacks for a long period of time, which is of a concern for the forum members, that they would lose access to the resource that they use to make money, and they believe this risk to be unacceptable. In general, if we summarize the risk tolerance, obviously all cyber criminals have different risk tolerance. Another interesting fact is that this tolerance may be different across their career. When they only start in dark web, they have enthusiasm. Then at some point in time, they start to become paranoid because the risks are very much incommensurate, and there are two options. First, the cyber criminals can overcome this paranoia and just keep on with their life with all the necessary security measures and convincing themselves that they will not get caught, that they are smarter. But there are other cyber criminals that cannot manage this paranoia, and they continue living in constant fear with constant stress that one day they will get caught. And the final feature that I want to discuss is the lack of empathy. All studies in psychology say that with criminals, the empathic ability may be hindered or be absent altogether. And the absence of empathy means the lack of compassion or the contempt to social norms. Absence of compassion
направлена на личность, на человека, чем на компании и корпорации.
We can look at this example of carding.
Сами злоумышленники говорят, что кардинг — это такое воровство, которое
Hackers say that carding is theft that is not directly pointed at an individual. And in the countries where the issuing bank bears full responsibility for the money stolen, this carding, they say, is perfectly ethical. A lack of empathy also has this feature. If your victims are far away across the ocean, why worry about them? It is also said that cybercriminals fully take account of their actions. It is not necessarily so. There is a category of criminals who come to dark web to just read on something. And with the development of blockchain, many categories remain blurry, and they do not fully understand the responsibility, the liability that they will bear. Another point is rejection of social norms. They reject and challenge the social norms developed by the society. The social norms are an important part of any society. To enable the society to function properly. But question becomes whether they reject social norms or do they invent their own norms. And finally, lateral thinking of cyber criminals and increasingly people start saying that those criminals are neurodivergent. And this debate is being supported by ethical hackers, providing their own example, and they come to the conclusion that neurodivergence is not a factor that influences whether a person will become a criminal or not. To penetrate infrastructure, you've got to have a cyber focus, but to implement a social engineering attack, you've got to have social skills. So among cyber criminals, there's broad diversity of skills and specialization. My personal view is that to say that cyber criminals don't have empathy, that is not appropriate. They have different views, but social norms do evolve. Dark web is also a society. People coexist and interact there. They have their goals, they have their values, they have their rules. Let's talk about those in more details. Some values, one of the values is justice, and justice exists in various forms. There's arbitration, for example. If you have been defrauded, if you write to tech support, the platform would use the deposit of your counterparty. Or another example was about the voting in a Telegram channel, about leaking manuals to projects. And the initial voting was to make this person go to prison. Then they decided other forms of punishment, but then they decided to forgive the person because they repented. Another principle, not to work in CIS. Well, there seems to be an agreement about that, but still, every 6 months, there's a discussion thread that maybe we want to start attacking some of the CIS countries, or, for example, not to attack medical institutions. Again, that's an agreed norm, but once in a blue moon, there is a discussion thread that, okay, we don't want to attack hospitals, but maybe dentists we can attack because they are different type of doctors.
проникнуть сквозь границы и очень напоминают
But these attempts of testing boundaries really are reminiscent of teenage attempts to shift boundaries. But of course, there are incidents, and Logbits, for example, attacked a Chicago hospital a year ago. There was a Toronto hospital. Logbits apologized to the Toronto hospital and sent a decryptor for free. This year, they asked 850 to 950,000 US dollars. A similar situation with a hospital in Romania. So you can see that things and ethos evolves even in dark web. And these principles should not be seen as a code of honor of criminals. It's more of social norms that exist so that people could interact and work with each other. Why can we see these rules as social norms? Because they have been developed by the admins of platforms, by the old players. And it's regulated, it's enforced. If people do not agree, they are banned, sometimes for life. And why that is useful for the administrators of fora or platforms? Well, it's security. If you don't hack the country in which you live, then there will be less probability that you would be sought after. But others can see this as a moral code, because the human brain works in such a way that we want to look good to ourselves. What does every individual get from observing rules? From my point of view, the main benefit of observing the rules is the community. On the dark web, people can communicate, they can get support, they can join into groups, they can enter private chats and closed groups, such as the KillNet group, for example. Some say that these are good guys, others say that they should be criticized. The older players think that they don't do much, they just hype on things. So you can join one of the groups, or you can join a darknet sect. Recently, there's a sect who claim that they can answer why is it that only a few people own billions? And the answer is that the corporations are to blame and have to destroy corporations. Also, the points of skills. Once you join, you fill in a questionnaire, and if you can't do much, then you will get trained because you become part of the community. I don't know what happens in that sect, whether the participants donate their apartments to the sect leaders. I don't know about that. There's another funny thing happening in darknet. Crowdfunding in darknet happens for various reasons. If a well-known user has been caught and arrested and they don't have the money to pay for a lawyer, the community would fundraise to get them a lawyer, because good people shouldn't go to prison. Or if someone has a bad thing that happens in their family, again, there's fundraising for medical treatment. And the more respected a participant is, the more they get involved with the troubles of other participants, the more active the participants would be if they have an issue. Also, there's the topic of family relations. The common understanding is that criminals are loners, and indeed some criminals say that a wolf in love is not a predator anymore, that love is a big risk, and the idea is that if you tell your other half about what you do, there are two options. First, they will report you to the police and you will be arrested, but even if they don't report you, the time could come that you will become targets of law enforcement authorities, and your partner will report you out of good wishes because they would think that they are doing good for you. And if you don't tell the partner about what you do, you wouldn't have a relationship of trust. There are criminals, however, who have good families and who are good family members. But even if they're not alone in their personal life, they still need a community. There are some problems that you cannot discuss with your wife, with your kids, with your husband. You can only discuss those things with your pals or fellows. And sometimes in dark web, you get a psychologist coming in and advertising their services. Others say that that's a utopia. People wouldn't go to a psychologist and would not complain that they cannot implement an attack. So people go to dark web for support. That they can get from the community. One thing that exists in dark web is burnout. People suffer from stress, from being depressed, from not knowing what to do next, and they need assistance and advice, and they ask more experienced colleagues about this. They share motivational quotes. You just have to persist. What does it mean to persist? Until what time? When do cybercriminals decide that now it's time to retire? Is there any goal that you can achieve and then you can just quit and have a rest? Let's talk about the retirement of cybercriminals. GhostTech recently said that they will not do ransomware anymore because they want to focus on hacktivism because they've accumulated enough money and they don't need it. But early this year, they launched their RAS program, so that statement is very questionable. So those statements that a group of criminals retires should not be taken for granted. Well, old age in this industry, according to them, happens after 30. If we compare this to IT, it's pretty much the same. You've got to be always aware of what's going on. You should keep learning. But with cyber criminals, it's very different. They have everyday stress. They've got to think every day about the security measures that they have to apply and what they need to do in order to not get caught. You also have to think about not being deceived, because you can work for months and then you would not be paid and you would be left with nothing. So this, of course, leads to all aspects of depression and paranoia, because this is a very stressful job. The question becomes why they remain cyber criminals, why they remain in this industry, and are there cyber criminals for life? There's an opinion that at some point the black job has to end and you want to move to a legitimate job. Some people think that you can double time, that you can do both. You can do a legitimate job and the hobby and practice your favorite hobby. Sometimes
выходят на легальную работу.
Cybercriminals take a legitimate job to just make some money. That sounds funny, doesn't it? But in order to work on dark web, you've got to make some investments. You've got to invest in proxies, in VPNs, in subscription-based solutions. So people often say that they want to take a legitimate job, make some money, because to work in cybercrime, you surprisingly need capital. In summary, it is difficult to develop a single cybercriminal portrait because there are people in the dark web who are very different. Some people are very empathic. They are happy to come forward. They are happy to help others. They are always ready to come for help. There are others who are in it for money. They are happy to deceive everyone just to get their buck. There are people who can accept risk. There are people who cannot. There are people who are loners. There are others who are not. They are all different. But why are they in dark web?
Well, my personal opinion is that people go into dark web in search of other people. I think that they're lonely in the real world, and they escape to this other world where you can communicate with people who understand you. You know, they say that people are more important than money because people are more scarce than money. So why are they not becoming ethical or white hackers? Well, I think there is a factor here which prevents them from going to IT. Number one, they have a bad idea of the white job. The image of the white job is bad. They think that in information security, everything is bad, that the requirements for any grade are too high, you're not going to make any money, because they believe that your best opportunity is to make 100,000 rubles in Sberbank. And they say that programmers make a lot, but they don't want to be programmers. They want to break things. Then they don't have formal education or experience. These are also important factors. But if they believe that without this they cannot succeed, then, well, okay, they cannot have any official work. If you have a criminal record, you cannot make it to the cybersecurity world. And they don't want to be part of the corporate culture. Just imagine, you should play by the rules and norms. You should write your CV, you should go to interviews, and instead of talking about your exploits, you should talk about your vision for the next 5 to 10 years. And then you are hired, then you should follow the hierarchy, meet plans and deadlines. You should become part of this culture. And in the eyes of cyber criminals, this is a difficult thing. And I think this is the problem. They feel that they don't belong to this world of cybersecurity, so they go into the underworld. Okay, so we have discussed why cybercriminals are doing this, why they are not going to work for legal work, and they also discuss this. They also think why we professionals in the field of cybersecurity are still legally employed. Why are we not going to dark web? I found an interesting thread. Cybercriminals were discussing why we are on the white side, on the bright side, and they think that we are just crazy altruists. But then they burn out and they go to dark web. Okay, colleagues, it means that it's time to reflect on this, to think maybe you don't like this, so fix this, spend more time resting, drink good beer, and enjoy life. So please stay on the white ethical side. If you are interested in the dark web, we have the DFI blog, where we write interesting research, how ground and how Mars work. There are other interesting things there. We also have Purple Shift, our Telegram channel, with a lot of interesting research and recommendations, all to the point and only the juiciest things. We have 10 T-shirts for the best questions.
Target destroyed.
Евгений, добрый день. А почему вы считаете, что отсутствие эмпатии — это составная часть?
Why do you think that lack of empathy is a part of the attacker portfolio? Well, I have already unveiled, busted this myth. This is not related to as their feature. So those who are making money, an analyst. So who is an analyst in dark web? Well, an analyst can be an IT or a system analyst or information security analyst. So we don't go deeper than that. So an analyst has some competences to perform cyber crime. Another post. How often white hackers go to the dark side and what prompts them? Well, I cannot comment on that. I can't mention any numbers. If you go to the dark side, so cyber criminals never talk about this. So even if they have made the shift, they don't share it with anyone. So we are not going to find this out. Well, in dark web, we have a lot of different people, including hacktivists, and they're also there. They communicate with other cyber criminals. Dark web is not only about selling your offices or services or buying something. This is an educational resource. You can talk to people, as I mentioned. Communication is important to them, and they can go to dark web to communicate with people who understand them. Yeah, hacktivists are also there in the dark web. How these informal discussions of darknet forums let you identify the key psychological features of cybercriminals and how can you use it to develop a more effective strategy to counteract their activities? Well, I would put it like that. Well, people in dark web, they don't just communicate. There are two usual cases for this. We have two strong emotions, love and anger. And when they are concerned with something, they talk about, this at length, that they are unhappy with injustice. And this is a good base for research. As for love, they can, talk about their love to those they trust, and you can analyze it. You can see what drives them, whom they like, and whom they consider, important. And I think that the second part of the question is the realm of psychologists and other experts. I've been focused on IT security. Okay, thank you. Do you think you should analyze your staff? Maybe some of your people don't have empathy. Maybe they're not going to start a family. Well, what can I tell you? Every day seeing our clients, my colleagues, I talk about their biases and other issues, but in the field of cybercrime, I do respect all of my colleagues. I think they're great colleagues. I don't believe that they can double on the dark side. How often are they jailed? Well, how can we build the statistics? We know those who are behind the bars, but we don't know who is not behind the bars. So statistics wouldn't be representative. Well, if my colleague matches your portrait, shall I be concerned? Well, can you understand by the behavior of people that they are cyber criminals? Well, I don't think we have a clear definition. Well, someone can be extremely concerned in terms of their safety. For instance, he or she has two laptops. One of them is always locked, and he or she has two phones, and one of them only has buttons on it. So this is about security. So maybe these are information security guys, but so they are also paranoid in terms of their security. So you cannot use this, indirect evidence for claiming they're criminals. How long did it take you, and what is your sample size? Well, I have researched dark web for 4 years. I have accumulated a lot of experience. Talking about the sample size for analysis, so we are analyzing a lot of dark web sources, forums, onion resources, Telegram channels. Well, anything we can analyze, we do analyze. We have a unified monitoring system. So I would say that the sample here is big and reliable.
Вопрос Ани Павловской. Какие способы сбора информации вы используете?
What are
Как я уже сказала, мы мониторим
your ways of
это часть нашей
sourcing information? So we monitor dark web professionally. We monitor threats there.
Совмещение с психологией, то психология является моим увлечением.
Psychology is my hobby. I read a lot of psychological research. And in this case, I had also read a lot on psychology and the psychology of cybercriminals. Hello, do we have a dating site in dark web? Well, I don't think we have a dating site there, but from time to time you can see this. We had a good research. They used AI to see that 30% of dark web users are women. So this was identified based on their style of communication, their nicks. So people do meet there, but without any dating sites. How much time did you spend in dark web preparing for this? I have answered this. Do you want to be on the dark side for the easy money? No, I don't. I don't have this wish. I really love and respect my colleagues. I love my profession, and I'm always there for staying on the white side. I don't think we need these risks or stress. We have enough of it. So you can proceed with the things you love in your white job.
Так, еще вопросы? Если в Даркнете реклама вакансий, группировок, кадровый голод,
do we have any staff shortage advertising of criminal groups? How can we protect the young from joining these groups? Yeah, they have advertising, and these groups publish advertisements so that they buy their services. Well, as for those who are easily convinced, in the UK, they had a survey. They talked to parents, and 40% of parents are afraid that their kids might start making money illegally due to the recession, because they are in an economic crisis. So they're afraid that in the dark web there might be a source of easy money, and school children having nothing better to do can go to dark web and try to join these activities. And as researchers say, education and giving the right values is important. There was an interview with Mr. Kevin, I can't remember his last name. He works for Winebase, I think. And he says that when he was a school child, he went to the dark side in cybercrime, but he was told that it wasn't the right thing to do, so he changed his approach. So we should tell people that you can work in cybersecurity, and if you want to break the nets and the internet, you can work. We can do this on the white side. Okay. Uncontrolled flows of funds generated by hackers can increase inflation. Do you think it's a problem, or do you think that this criminal money can be used for organizing new jobs, building factories, and so on? Well, I'm not an economist, and ethically speaking, I would say that any flow of dirty funds is bad for the world. How the current situation in Russia and globally impacts the emergence of new criminal groups and darknet forums? What are the strategic measures you would call the most effective ones for contained in this changing landscape? Well, I would say that the situation we can see globally in Russia, well, I don't think that it's really important for the new cybercrime groups. It's the way it used to be. What is important is the development of technology and the availability of technology, like the SAS model is spreading, making these services more available. Well, I would say that the barrier to entry here is very low, and school children can start these criminal activities. Yes, indeed, new criminal groups are emerging, and talking about the serious ones, so we can say that there are really competent people working there, and to reach this level of competence, you should work really hard. And if we have this group, I think, well, this is more, well, like a rare event. And a group of activists, well, they don't have these technical competences. They are activists, but they are not a real threat. But still, they are strong in numbers, and they can be a threat this way. So talking about strategic measures, I think we should think about increasing this barrier to entry to dark web. We, as experts, as information security people, we should think about it. Okay, what about this crazy altruists? When are you going to get retired? At 30? Not my case, at least. And how do you look for forums in dark net? Well, this is a really interesting process, since sometimes they close down these forums. There are mirrors, so they migrate. So you have to monitor this. You should look for new resources, and that's what we are doing with our colleagues day in, day out. And I would say that there are different sources for this, different pieces of information. Unfortunately, I cannot share any detail on this due to the time concerns, but anyway, I shouldn't be public about it. Okay, cybercriminals are trying to build their own community with their own rules. Why do they stay away from conformity and corporate culture? Well, I think that they consider corporate culture some constraints you have to satisfy. So you cannot start doing whatever you like doing anytime. So you have a project and you have to do this. So if you're not interested anymore, if you want to shift to something different, there is some new malware, you want to reverse it, but you have to run the project. So I think that the idea is that rules are still rules, but this eagerness, this zeal to do what you're interested in now is the decisive thing here. Okay, empathy and lack of income. What's the correlation between this? Well, I don't think I can take this one. This is hardcore psychology. How much time do you have to spend on the dark side, and how do you manage to stay on the white side? Well, why don't you give up? Well, I'm not ready to answer this. We can have a look at the opinion of some people from the dark web, but this is not a definitive kind of set of information. How to make $4,000? Okay, we can talk about developing competences, and I don't think that this is not attainable. And if we look at the hiring data in large companies, this is an okay salary. Well, please upskill yourself, get better. What's the average lifespan of hackers in dark web? This is really interesting. We cannot analyze hackers. We cannot build a median, because this is absurd. This is impossible. We will never know who these people in the dark web really are, so we can just assume things, but this is not evidence-based. This is not an expert approach. Can dark web become a tool to develop new technologies and innovations? Well, dark web is a collective notion. We are talking about different forums, onion resources, Telegram channels, and other private messages. So this is not just one tool. These are several tools in one, and each of them has its own target audience. It has its own goals. It's designed for. Can we build a forum to develop new technologies? Yeah, we can. But if we talk about dark web as a collective notion, then it is not likely to happen. How popular in darknet is the idea of what? Of getting better. Yeah, I'll take it like that. Well, so that you can, yeah, for instance, make some money, and then you will become white again without doing anything dark. Yeah, this is a popular topic, by the way, in darknet. Do you think there are those who are both cyber criminals and ethical hackers? Well, if you look at the interviews, some of them said that they used to be on each side, so we have people like that. What are cyber criminals mourning about? What are they winning about? What are the social issues they race? Well, they talk about the world being unjust, policy being unjust, and they want to do something great, but mundane life is too difficult for them. Okay, some statistics. Well, assessing, well, so we cannot build good statistics. We have some AI-based research, but I will not be, again, referring to statistics because these are not relevant research. We cannot know who these people in dark web really are. Can you show an example of big companies using dark web for their work? Do you mean that companies are in dark web? Well, then this would be hacker groups. They use dark web for their purposes. If you are talking about research on ethical hacking, well, I will not mention the companies, but threat intelligence is an important tool to protect companies. That's why I think that many companies who are at a given stage in terms of security maturity are using dark web as a source of information on threats. Where can I get the interview with the hacker you talked about? Okay, if this is talking about the owner of the Etar, it was published at the dark web forum. I'm not advertising it now, but if you want to watch this interview with hacker, well, YouTube has an interview with the owner of Kinet, Idena Club. If you want to watch an interview on hackers, you can go there. It is publicly available. What should an analyst know to start a career in information security and white hacking? Well, to start there, you should have some basic IT knowledge and IT security, information security, and you should gradually join this process and bring yourself up to speed. And we are now running a training session, and you can join it. So this will be a short internship, so you can start there. So if you're interested in this, you can have a look at Kaspersky, for instance. They have internships for students and even for school children. So you are welcome. You can join us for white and ethical hacking. What are the factors supporting the development of hacking in darknet? There are many factors at play here, and my presentation covered this. I see we have a lot of questions here. Let me have a look. Oh, we have some questions from the live audience. Yeah, this is the endless list. Let's get rid of your questions. Yeah, indeed, this is really interesting. And going back to the initial topic, let me ask you a question and let me then follow up on it. Okay, the darknet criminal profile. Based on your experience and your company's experience, have you run, say, research jointly with law enforcement agencies when you are hunting. So have you had cases like that when building a profile helped you catch a criminal or a criminal group? What I mean is that in the 1960s to 70s, they started profiling criminals in terms of criminology and criminalistics. And when big law enforcement guys dealt with organized crime, so they caught them, they profiled them. Hence the question, did you try anything like that in terms of digital crime? And what do you think about it overall? So what's your personal opinion? Do you think that psychology and the digital criminalistics will develop to a stage where all this taken together will help us catch digital criminals without even seeing them in the real life? Like that somewhere you understand that this criminal likes white red polka dot garments. Okay, we understand that this guy is behind a ransomware group. I think you got it. Okay, thank you. The first question. For good or for bad, I haven't seen any cases like that. I haven't helped law enforcement to catch cyber criminals. And as for profiling, the interesting thing is that we have some guidelines on how we should respond to data leakages, where we give recommendations to build the profile of the attacker, who this guy really is. How can you do it? You can analyze the threads the user took part in, so the interest they have. And talking about the digital world, this is really important to understand whether the leakage is real, to see whether you need any investigation or not. Maybe this is just scamming. And you should also analyze the topics the hackers take part in. Maybe they say whether they're lonely or not lonely, the books they like, the movies they like. And in terms of deep profiling, I think, well, I can't give you a definitive answer here. I haven't seen any research which would be on the cyber criminals profiling. But I think just like real-life crime profiling, this is possible. I think in the future we might be doing this profiling.
Спасибо за доклад. Хотел бы тоже уточнить, вот подобные приемы психологического анализа.
One more question. Do you use this psychological analysis in your research? So what would be the tools you use? Well, my job is not primarily about psychology. Psychology is my hobby. So no. When we investigate dark web-related incidents, we are more focused on the technical components of this. But if the customer wants us to build the profile of the cyber criminal, well, indeed, we do gather all the information we can find on this user. Since we monitor dark web quite deeply, we have a system gathering all the messages. Even if in a forum this was deleted, we all have it there forever. So we have a relevant base, and we can get a lot of information from it, and we can tell the customer what the cyber criminal was interested in a year ago or 2 years ago, what they're interested in now, and who they are. Thank you very much. Really interesting. At the beginning of your speech, you mentioned that the leader had said that he didn't pay a lot, just $2,000 in dark web. It's little, as far as we understand. So just he pays $2,000 because they are not under stress. They just have some extra work to do. And at the end of your speech, you said that all cyber criminals in the dark web, well, they are all under stress, and they have this risk, and the quality of life in this case is badly undermined. So is the head of the cyber business, can he protect his staff so that this becomes just like your white job? Thank you. Well, finally, I would say there are two types of cyber criminals. One is in stress, the other one is proceeding their career, and they get relaxed and get used to this risk. And as for the Sultan, well, he cannot make his team safe and secure. The only thing he can do is develop some safety measures and make everyone follow them. But this is, well, more related to the responsibility of every criminal, I think, because everything is happening in the digital environment. There isn't any office where he can give notebooks to everyone and then take them back. So here, security issues are the domain of cybercriminals. They usually have protocols of what to do if they are caught, because as Sultan says, if they have a good team, they don't want to, undermine other participants. So they're interested in this, but they're still, each and every one of them is accountable for this. And talking about dark web, everyone bears his or her own responsibility. If you get caught, so maybe they will help you to hire a lawyer, but they will not support you in any other way because they'll be caring for themselves. Thank you.
Thank you for the presentation. I have two questions. Did you see a churn in the dark web community after someone was caught or de-anonymized by the police? The most recent one was the de-anon of the Logbit owner. And second, are there any stages of social adaptation of criminals in the dark web or forums? When a new person comes, they've got to find their way around. Answering the first question, in some areas, there will be a reduction of activity. Maybe because they become too big, they decide to suspend their activity so that the dust settled, so to say. But as the example of Logbit shows, well, he hasn't been caught, by the way. This didn't stop anyone, but everyone thinks that they're the smartest and nothing would happen. Answering your second question, I do hope that you are asking just out of curiosity, but there are training courses on dark web. You can start as a fresher and start from scratch. There are many articles, many manuals that people share with each other. So if a new person comes in, well, that is the good thing. Understanding how to be secure on dark web, and all the manuals are very accessible, and the more experienced criminals get affected because of that. Because imagine that they have been planning an attack for months, and suddenly there's a newbie coming in on the same target and he messes things up, and so the loophole is closed and they're left up with nothing.
Thank
you for the presentation. Very interesting. I have a question. As a researcher into dark web with a lot of experience, and as we just found out, having a system that logs all the messages to which you have access, can you please tell us, the criminals that take a lot of measures to stay anonymous, to not get caught, to what extent do you believe they are sincere and authentic when they interact in a community? Clearly, everyone would be selective about the information that they choose to disclose. But to what extent do you think the participants of the community are authentic when they talk to each other? And to what extent do you think they share real information about themselves? Well, it's hard to say. The dark web has various sources in its composition. Some fora are broadly available. You can only pay a relatively small amount of money. In such fora, there are people who would open up completely. Others would be very cautious. But the value of the service is that we don't just have access to those sources, but also to the sources that are closed or semi-closed. And then criminals become more sincere. Clearly, you can't trust a liar, as the saying goes. But my opinion would be that with a pinch of salt, you can trust their messages. The report is not based on individual messages, but rather on the correlation of facts that we can observe in the dark web. And in my report, I try to accumulate information. I try to be critical about the information. Forum users often say that sometimes a researcher comes in, they see a particular phrase and they make a news report out of it, and they laugh about it and make fun about it. So clearly, there are instances when users can mislead researchers. Okay, clearly Anna can speak endlessly about dark web. Let's take the last three questions and then we'll let her go. Thank you for your presentation. Do you believe that the image of a hacker that exists in the media, does that have an influence on people selecting the profession? And in general, whether the role models have a role to play here. Thank you for your question. Talking about role models, my personal view is that everyone wants to have a family or a relationship. And in fact, some people are quite lonely, and that is the reason why they go to dark web, because it's difficult to find the people who would understand you, and there people understand you. I guess the media image does make a contribution. It does portray those lone wolf hackers that don't find a place in the society, they don't fit, and people think, oh yes, that's me. And where else can I find a place to fit? I think I should explore this alternative society. So maybe, yes, sometimes some people do switch to the dark side because they see this media image. Good afternoon, thank you. What differences are there, if at all, between the Russian-speaking cybercriminal community and the international community in terms of how they communicate, maybe some psychological traits? Thank you for the question. There are research papers that are based on AI that compares Russian language and non-Russian language hackers, and it says that we are much more straight to the point. In English language resources, people tend to talk more about unrelated subjects and discuss gender equality and discuss things whether in a relationship people should share when they pay or should a man pay. So they would discuss more life-related things more than our hackers tend to. I'm struggling to develop a psychology profile, even though my knowledge of English is C1. It takes perhaps a more granular view, and I'm struggling to respond to this question. So when we build a threat model or when we do a risk analysis, we want to put together a hacker profile. Where can we get this data? Do researchers get this data from darknet fora, or are there any data sources that you could use for a more focused exercise to build a criminal's profile? Thank you for the question. That's a very interesting question, because in my presentation I wanted to develop a criminal profile and decompose them into MITRE vulnerabilities, but people told me that it's not a good thing to do that at 6 p.m. in the evening. But I guess dark web researchers could sit down and come up with such profiles, because when we build security models, we do model criminal profiles, but we don't model all of them. I don't think anyone models school children who downloaded a manual and started DDoSing left and right. Often, ransomware is provided to criminals by other criminals, and the user could be just a school kid who took the manual and tries to get their first go at it. Building a profile of a criminal is an interesting task, but I didn't do such an exercise. And this concludes the second day of this track. Let's put our hands together.